Welcome to Ed for Del Mar Regent. We filmed this version of the show on December 20th, 2014. We're opening again with a memo from Mr. Johnson, the Del Mar College Controller, explaining that there is no supporting documentation because the accounts receivables were converted in 2010 and they were out of balance with the general ledger until apparently a forced journal entry was created and posted in 2012. Please enjoy the show. Thank you. This is an analysis of Del Mar College when we compare it to other colleges in Texas. The most significant item, there are probably two significant items. The most significant, I believe, is the debt per student. Currently, Del Mar has $9,890 of debt for each student. Now, that includes the full-time students, which number less than 3,000, the part-time students, which is around 6,000, and the dual credit students, about 1,350. So they have, each one of them represents $9,890 of debt. Del Mar has approximately 10,500 students. They've got about $100 million in debt currently. Now, the recent bond issue for $157 million was passed during the last election cycle. That will increase the debt, the total debt for Del Mar, to approximately $257 million. Now, some of that will be paid down in the interim, and all the new debt won't be issued at the same time. However, when that debt is fully issued, it will be in the area of $250 million. Now, if we only have 10,500 students, we're going to have over $24,000 of debt for each student. Now, what's that compare to? Let's look at Wharton. Wharton has debt per student $612. Now, that's currently. Del Mar has $9,890. Wharton's been around a long time. How much debt does Wharton have? $3,830,000. Del Mar has about $100 million. They will have about $250 million. So we can compare $24,000 per student debt for Del Mar to Wharton's $612. Why the difference? Well, that's a very good question. And in fact, let's look at some of these other schools. North Central Texas, $761 per student debt. El Paso, $1,923 per student debt. Why is it that Del Mar is so much higher? And based on the statistics that I've seen on the internet, Del Mar cost approximately 30% more to educate a student than the national average. Now, this is based on research on the internet, and I have tried and am currently still trying to get information from Del Mar through the Public Information Act laws. It's been very difficult. As most of you are aware, one of the requests that I asked for was some detailed general ledger accounts for a handful of general ledger accounts. The quote came back at $26.7 million and $105 million documents with over 100 man-years to produce them. We did negotiate that with the college attorney, the outside counsel, and within 15 minutes we came down to it was less than 200 pages, and the cost was $0. So it appeared to be an intentional roadblock so that I would not get the memo that you saw opening the show. That memo indicates to me that the college tried, their accounting department tried in 2010 to convert some system, accounting system, accounts receivable system, some system that is a major component of their internal control system. And apparently, based on that memo, the conversion didn't go that well. In fact, that memo says the conversion failed. And in 2012, over a year later, the college, their accounting department, elected to post a forced journal entry to make that general ledger agree to those subledgers. That the amount of that forced journal entry was approximately $185,000. The journal entry was the original one that Dr. Sansing and I found based on his initial Public Information Act request for the Del Mar bad debt. That was a 5-foot stack of paper. And in that 5-foot stack of paper, we found this 3-page memo that was attached to a journal entry that wrote off accounts to the likes of Texas A&M Kingsville for over $50,000. The Council of Government for close to $80,000. These bothered us. We've done additional research, or have attempted to acquire more information, and it's been a real struggle. They don't want to turn the information over. For some reason, Del Mar does not want to give me the information. Let's look at the tax rates. Now, in 2008, I think Del Mar was the 3rd highest tax rate of any community college taxing authority in Texas. In 2012, some have changed. There are some that are above us. But let's look at the rate. In 2012, Del Mar's taxing about 25.8 cents per thousand. How's that compared to, let's say, Wharton? Wharton's just about half that, 13.8 cents. Now, Wharton has lower debt per student. So they are taxing at a lower rate, and their debt per student's lower. That indicates to me, on the surface, that Wharton is a better run, more efficiently run college, economically, than Del Mar. We need to look at other financial ratios, which I have and which I continue to do, to determine why Del Mar is on a bell curve way removed from the mean, or the medium. Del Mar is on the far left-hand side of that bell curve. They're over on almost every number when compared to the average colleges in Texas, the community colleges. That doesn't tell us anything conclusively. However, it gives us a fine indication that there's something wrong, that maybe it's not very well run economically, efficiently. It's an inefficiently run college. And when you look at the fact that, based on the internet research, it cost 1/3 more to educate a student at Del Mar, something seems seriously wrong. All right, let's look at some other slides.
85,000. Was that the only one? Well, how fortunate would it be for us to find the only forced journal entry in that 5-foot stack of documents that we had?
Like finding the golden needle in the haystack.
Yeah, I'm just speculating that's not the only problem that exists. But they did not want us to get that memo that John Johnson had to write in response to my PIA request for the detail, because the detail didn't exist. It was a forced journal entry. So that was the roadblock. That was the $27 million roadblock. They didn't want us to find that.
Okay. Well, consequently, and I think you've got those figures there, we have, and you and I have gone through and asked for all the years, and I think that from 2007 to 2014, they have written off something like $2,838,000.
You've got a pretty good memory.
Okay. Well, that's I'm a taxpayer, folks. Okay, so I'm going to ask Ed if he'll go down from 2007. I think 2008 was the biggie, wasn't it?
It was 2008. They wrote 1.44 million off. So they wrote off as uncollectible receivables from somebody for $1.44 million in 1 year. Now, I requested the detail for this information,
right,
and it is $2.838 million for that 7-year period, approximately $400,000 a year. Now, that's a big number to me.
That's a big number to me too, as a taxpayer.
400,000, and when you realize that Del Mar has their tuition that they charge the students on an annual basis, net of any discounts, is 10.7 million for 2014.
Okay.
Now, they're writing off something, I think it's tuition, it's some kind of receivable,
Mm.
for approximately $400,000 a year. That's a pretty sizable percentage of that meager amount that they charge for tuition anyway, because Del Mar's spending $90.5 million, $90,500,000 for 2014. That's their expenses. Now they're only bringing in tuition of 10.7 million. And now we can't even collect that. We've got a sizable portion of that that's being written off. So, and that's why when you look at the numbers, which I did while I was running for the Del Mar Board of Regents, I said, why is it costing 30% more to educate a Del Mar student than the national average?
Right.
And I don't have an answer. I just know it does, according to what the research that I found on the internet. And on a bell curve, all the financial ratios I looked at on the bell curve, when they're plotted on the bell curve compared to other colleges, Del Mar's way off the curve.
Wow.
It's 2 standard deviations removed from the median,
Mm.
which means there's something unusual going on.
Right.
And it's consistent from every financial ratio. It bothers me, and the fact that well, now we were one of the highest debt per student ratios with the advent of the $157 million bond.
Yeah.
When that's issued, we will not only be the highest debt per student ratio, we'll be the highest by a dramatic amount
Right.
in Texas.
Yeah.
And if you realize that the average debt per student in Texas for community colleges is about $6,000 per student, and after this bond is issued, we'll be at, now they're going to pay some of the debt off before it's all issued. So, and hopefully the student count will go up, but that hasn't happened in the last
Well, I think
4 years.
Yeah, here we are. We're facing the registration for this spring semester, and everybody over there is horrified at the numbers so far. It's down even further than this past fall.
Fall was down from the prior year.
Right.
Not many, but it was down.
Right. Yeah.
So since 2010, the enrollments declined every year.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's about 14% down from the peak in 2010.
Right. Yeah. Well, it concerns me deeply. My courses, all of mine, I think out of the 6 sections that I'm going to teach this semester in the spring, I think I've only got 2 of them that are below being full, and those are filling up pretty quick. But, and then we're running classes over there at Del Mar College where they don't make the enrollment numbers, but let's let it slide anyway.
That may be why the expenses are going up year to year.
Sure. Yeah.
We've got 2013 expenses at just under 88 million, 2014 at 90,500,000. So the expenses are going up, the student count's going down.
Right. Well,
That's just not a good trend.
no, that's a terrible way to go. And but I'm very concerned about the Attorney General's opinion about the $26 million. And what I'm going to do is, they stated quite unequivocally that here's what you've got to do. If there are any internal emails that were between the attorneys and the employees at Del Mar College, okay, that's the HR person and the comptroller and our CFO, president, vice presidents, and so forth and so on, then they can legitimately be withheld from ed, okay? But if we have, say, a memo internally between the comptroller and the CFO, or the comptroller and the director of the human resources and so forth, then other than redacting the personal email addresses of those individuals, then that's something that's going to have to be divulged by Del Mar College. So I'm going to be real curious to see And the Attorney General did say that some of those documents that they reviewed as a sample will need to be provided to Mr. Bennett and myself, okay? And Mr. Bennett says he did that. And then they stated something in there that was real weird, Ed, about if your email address from the requester's in there, they're gonna have to redact that. Now, I mean, if the man made the request, he's obviously not worried about people having his email address and go ahead and the solid address on his home. So, I don't know, you know, this is attorney talk, and it seems like every year it gets worse and worse with attorneys. They're gonna try to, you know, shovel more dirt over there on it.
And I guess you noticed the Austin law firm was retained to speak with the Attorney General on that.
Oh, yeah.
That would be our approximately $400 an hour firm.
Oh, yes, I did notice that. I noticed that. It was that counsel, it's Graves, Daughtry, Heron, and Moody out of Austin, Texas. And what happened to Mr. Rivera here with Dunn, Weatherford?
He's a whole lot more reasonable with his billing. I always like to see Augie's name on here because I know we're getting it for less than half of what we're paying these people
Right.
for.
Well, does that mean that Augie doesn't know what he's doing? I'm not going to speculate. I'm not a speculator, folks. I like, you know, I'm a scientist. I know I love the bare necessities and the bare facts. You know, what was that? The old Jack Webb thing.
Just the
with,
facts.
You know, what was the name of that show back in San Francisco? I think police only want the facts, man. And, that's all I needed. The badge something or other was the name of it. Anyway, so this is a real piece of work, and I wonder how much this opinion costs the taxpayers at the state level.
Well, I'll bet we can find that out.
Well, I think we ought to. You know, I'm just that curious about all this, so I'm going to wait with bated breath to find out how much of this information is going to be forked over, and you know, how can we ever tell whether Del Mar College turns over an email or not? I mean, they're in control of this.
They're the only ones that have access to the total population.
Right.
And now, we have no idea.
No.
We have no idea. Unless we get them all, we're not gonna know how many we didn't get.
That's right. Yeah. Well, you know, it's a real scam these days, and what is that, a sham and a scam and so forth and so on. I'm really just, you know, very downhearted and rather perturbed with this. Like I say, I don't get mad, I get even normally, but this has got me upset, this whole $26.7 million. And then to blow it off in 14 minutes with Mr. Rivera.
Yeah.
I mean, that was,
Either Augie's a genius and he's very efficient, or there's a real problem with the college.
well, you know, it may be all of the above, I'm not sure. I'm not gonna pass judgment yet. We've got plenty of airtime in the next couple of years to sort this one out. But this is a real piece of work here. And this ought to concern you taxpayers out there, you know. Why can't we just have this thing in the open? Why are we worried about attorney-client privilege when this is taxpayers' money involved? And I just don't understand.
And that's a good point. And I do respect attorney-client privilege, but there's nothing that should have been involved in this $27 million quote that should be privileged. I mean, I was just asking for a few general ledger accounts.
Right.
There's no confidential information in the general ledger.
No.
And we know that because
It shouldn't be.
we got the general ledger.
Right.
So there was no confidential information in it. Could it have been misunderstood, my request? If they worked really hard at it, it could have been misunderstood.
Right.
But anybody with an accounting background at all would have understood what the detailed general ledger was
Right.
and what I was asking for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I'm not sure why there would be any privilege. There's no confidential information being requested. Why would it be privileged? Well, to save embarrassment, I guess.
Yeah, to save face. I mean, you know, these people are paid by you taxpayers. I'm paid by you taxpayers out there, okay? I try to deliver the best course I can to get my students, you know, where they need to go. And I'm not going to get into the latest brouhaha over there with statements by a board member. But, you know, I do my best to try to go over there and provide these students with what they need to succeed. And I think if people know what I've done over 20 some odd plus years over here, I've got a lot of students over there, folks that are making real good money, good livings, you know, as RNs and surge techs and respiratory. I've got a couple of physicians, vets, pharmacy students, dentists and so forth and so on, and some people that have gone to graduate school and made great success of themselves. They're going to be fantastic professors one day. But the taxpayers are paying me to do that. But when it comes to your taxpayers' money in the accounts that are being kept over there, if you're kept in the dark and you don't know how they're spending that money or why or when and so forth, and they're trying to you know, withhold information from legitimate taxpayers, then I've got a real problem with that. And I'm not going to shut up, folks. I mean, I'm really not. And then another thing, now that we're on that subject, we found some more write-offs that disturbed me, that $2,838,000 over here. But in that, what was it, the U.S. Navy owed Del Mar College $42,000 some dollars.
And we requested more information on that, but we were going through some of these transactions, and you have to go through, you have to ask for some information, and then you go through it, and that gives you more information to ask for. So we're going through it's a maze that you have to go through it all, and then you find information that you need more information on. So we've got to go through all this one step at a time. But we got information that said $42,000 owed by the Navy had not been collected. And it was on a document that said bad debts, $42,000 from the Navy to be written off. And we don't have all that transaction. We've asked for that. We've asked for the additional information. But the document that we saw from the college said they couldn't collect $42,000 from the Navy.
Yeah, and that it had been attempted to be collected.
That's what it said. And we actually had 2 years. 1 year it said attempting to collect it. Next year it said bad debt to be written off.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm confused. I know a little bit about the Navy. We have a daughter that's in the Navy. She's been in there for 6 years now. Been in school most of that time. But we went out and visited, and several times, and never did I think the Navy was broke.
No, I don't think so. And that means that the federal government's broke, and we know better than that. So why they couldn't pay it? And then there was another, what, 70 some odd thousand dollars attributed to the Coastal Bend Council of Governments?
It keeps popping up, and we have to get more information on that as well. But it keeps popping up on the bad debt write-offs, and every time I ask for more information, I get student names and tuition, and it's written off. They don't collect it. And it's like the Kingsville one. It looked like a total class was taught down at Kingsville, and they billed for the whole class, and it appeared that 3 students dropped, and none of them paid. It just didn't make any sense. I can see the 3 students that dropped, maybe they didn't need to pay, I don't know. But why did the other ones not pay? And of course, we've been roadblocked there. Even Andrew with KRIS went down there, and they were going to give him information, but then all of a sudden it stopped.
Yeah. Well, we had indication that our CFO had called down there, and
That's been reported to us. The CFOs talk to each other, and they have some strong relationship between the colleges. But for some reason, the information flow has ceased again. Now, you talk about you're being paid by the taxpayers. I want to point out that the instruction expense at the college for 2014 was just slightly over 35 million. The total expenses are 90 million.
Okay.
So the professors are being paid less than half, a great deal less than half of the total expenses.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think that's been getting, the proportion of instruction expenses has been declining as a percentage of the total expenses
Right.
for several years.
Mm-hmm.
And that bothers me because that means somebody else is taking a bigger portion of the pie, while, again, enrollment's declining.
Yep.
So we've got declining enrollment, and one of the things that I see is that we're spending a lot of money advertising, and the result is the enrollment's declining.
Mm-hmm.
So the advertising budget's going up, the instruction budget's going down, and the enrollment's going down.
Right.
Something's not working.
Well, and administrative cost is going up.
It has to. That's got to be the plug.
It's called administrative bloat, according to the Wall Street Journal. And there have been a lot of articles lately, Ed, about that, you know, that these the administrations are just getting larger and larger and larger, and the effectiveness of, is getting smaller and smaller, and the instructional end of it is shrinking.
And we need a community college here, and I'm blaming a lot of the pressure on Del Mar. I'm blaming on CCISD.
Mm-hmm.
Because they have historically graduated, the percentage that do graduate, they have an awful lot of dropouts.
Right.
But they've got people graduating that can't read at the level that would allow them to obtain a college education.
Right.
So Del Mar is being forced to teach remedial classes and a whole lot of GED classes as well.
Right.
So Del Mar's bearing the expenses for finishing the education that CCISD was paid to complete.
Okay. Yeah.
So I've got a real problem with CCISD.
Mm-hmm.
Now, they have just changed their superintendent, which I think is great, because you realize that they're in the bottom 25% of schools in Texas.
Yep.
And if you look at Texas, there's some pretty obsolete, obscure schools out there that would have a difficult time attracting
Right.
any teachers.
Right.
And we shouldn't have that trouble.
No.
We're in a major metropolitan area in Texas, right on the coast,
Mm-hmm.
but we're in the bottom 25% of Texas schools.
Well, I think CCISD has failed in their mission to prepare these students. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the term developmental reading, math, and English rather than remedial. And my deceased wife was an instructor at Del Mar College in reading. And, you know, I'm all for, as a taxpayer in a community college, to pay for people that are coming in that may not have come out of CCISD. We've got a lot of students like that, okay? So, you know, I'm going to use the term remedial, but it's still, CCISD has been very remiss on bringing students up to the point where they do not need the developmental reading skills and so forth and so on. And then unfortunately, and I'm not going to open this up on this show, but we have a person who just stepped down as the president of the CCISD board over there, and you know, she's now on the Del Mar College board. Took 3-year teacher contracts back to one, which is going to reduce our number of real good instructors over here. Punishing the instructors, saying it's all their fault and not the administration for supporting those teachers and so forth. And now, you know, I have the funny feeling at Del Mar College that what that person may want to do is to eliminate tenure and then go to the Coastal Bend College nonsense of no contracts, except year-to-year contracts, no tenure, no incentive to hire the very best of instructors.
That's scary. My daughter teaches high school, and and I know she has to be there before 7 o'clock in the morning,
Right.
and she's taking work home with her that she works on until 9 p.m.
Right.
So I'm convinced, she doesn't teach in CCISD, but I am convinced that it's not the teachers that are at fault. The school district is failing, and it's not the teachers. I'm convinced they work very hard.
Oh, yeah. I know they do.
And I hope Del Mar doesn't end up with a faculty structure like Coastal Bend. I've been up there. My Lord.
Yeah.
I only hope that doesn't happen.
Yeah. Well,
We need better than that, and we're paying for better than that.
oh, yeah. Well, I don't know where Coastal Bend is in the middle of that, but I don't think they have near the expenses that Del Mar College has.
I've looked at them, and they're minuscule, but
Yeah.
they don't have the debt per student that we've got.
No.
And in fact, almost nobody does.
Right. Well, as a tenured faculty member, now let me just explain, Ed, if I've got a second. Tenure does not mean that I can't be fired, I can't be let go for anything I do, say, or whatever. If there's not a need for me, if they shut down microbiology and chemistry and so forth at Del Mar College, then hey, then there's no need for me, okay? So tenure doesn't mean anything except if they want to try to get rid of me, they better have a real good means and a real good reason to get rid of a tenured faculty member. And it gives me incentive to do the best that I can, knowing that if somebody gets crossways with me over there in the department, which happens frequently with me, that they can't just go ahead and say, well, you're gone. You trump up some charges and get rid of you.
And I think tenure was put in there to protect the academic freedom.
That's right. Shared governance.
Yeah.
That's the whole bottom line. If I'm not free as a professional in my field of studies, and if I can't teach the class the way I know that it's best being a professional with that, that's called academic freedom, then the students are going to suffer. I mean, if I have an administrator who does not have a degree in anything academic over there trying to tell me what I'm going to teach and what I'm not, then that's not going to help the students, folks, okay? That's called watering it down and wimping it up.
And that's what makes degrees worthless. And you don't want a student, despite the fact that they don't pay much for the education, they're over there for 2 years.
That's right.
That's lost time that can't be replaced, so they should be getting or they deserve the
Right.
best education
Well,
they
they're
possibly
paying
can.
taxes too.
Well, hopefully they will in the future.
Yeah. Well, they do, even if they're,
Their parents do, or somebody is.
Somebody.
Somebody's in the,
right.
and if they own property, they're paying taxes. That's part of Del Mar's revenue.
Well, everybody needs to be helped along, folks, to succeed. That's the very backbone of this country. But when I see all this stuff happening over there, it really does, I get very sad about a lot of things that go on over here. And certainly the lack of financial responsibility that I see in Del Mar College, and I'm sticking my, neck out to say that, but it horrifies me. It really does.
Well, and financial responsibility is basically internal control structures, internal control systems. And I think we can legitimately say that we've seen some holes in the internal controls. When we get the memo from the college controller that says the books were actually out of balance, and it extended over a year period. That's a lack of internal control. And another lack of internal control is you don't have the function of an internal auditor that comes in there and checks this work.
Right.
And we haven't had one for, to the best of my knowledge, years.
Yeah, it's been several years.
There's a sign up there that
office,
says
yeah.
the internal auditor that way, and you go that way and there's no internal auditor.
No, there's nobody down the hall, so.
And as a taxpayer, I'm inclined to really want to pay that extra money to have the internal audit.
Sure.
And I would say have a staff of internal auditors,
Okay.
based on the information that I've seen.
Well, if we're writing off roughly $400,000 a year, and we could pay an internal auditor $100,000 a year, we're 300 and something $1,000 a year better off.
And let's pay a clerk $30,000 a year to send out certified letters to try to collect that stuff.
Right. Yeah.
I'll bet we get some return
I
on that.
bet you do, yeah.
Uh,
Especially with the Navy, you don't think they're gonna pay up? Right.
I think the Navy would have taken a phone call to the right department.
Yeah.
Now,
And the check would have been cut.
they pay their bills.
Mhm.
And it may be that the paperwork wasn't done correctly at the front end. That should be covered already.
Right.
I've waited in line over there to pay for my $7.66.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And I'm thinking, you know, we're into this line for 20 minutes and I'm the only one here.
Yeah.
What happens when we get people paying for tuition?
Well-
This can't be good.
Well, the person was trying to do that in front of us, and he must have been there at least 30 minutes, because they were occupied with him for 15 minutes after we got there, so.
You know, I'm just not getting a good feel for the financial structure over there.
No,
And every time I ask a question, these things pop up and then we get a roadblock.
mhm.
And so I think they don't want me asking questions.
Oh, no, no.
And for everybody's benefit, I was an auditor at one point, not an internal auditor. I was an external auditor with what's called it was then the big 8 accounting firms.
Mhm.
There were 8 large ones. Now there's only 4.
Right.
My alma mater is still they exist.
Mhm.
So it's one of the big 4 now. So I've done audits. I've looked at this stuff.
Well, after 30 years with a CPA, I think I've got a lot of confidence in what you can.
I know what I'm looking at. I know what to expect, and sometimes I'm just appalled. Just appalled.
Well, so am I as a taxpayer. I don't know any of that stuff, but I'm learning fast, thank you. And,
You catch on pretty quickly, Doc.
well, you have to these days, you know, it's, now you see me, now you don't.
But I'm comparing these ratios to other colleges, and I like Wharton because Wharton's been around a long time,
Oh, yeah.
and their debt per student ratio, they got $519 per student debt.
Well, let me tell you about Wharton, if you really want to know.
Yeah.
I'm from Bay City, Texas originally. That's where my dad was from. I had a cousin who went to Wharton, and her husband went to Wharton, and he's a CPA. He was with Exxon, all over the world as an accountant for Exxon. Another uncle went to Wharton, and he wound up being the vice president of one of the biggest shipping firms up and down the Mississippi, barge companies in the country. Okay, one of his sons went to Wharton College, and I've known a lot of people that are over there. I've got another cousin that's in New Mexico. She's an accountant that went to Wharton.
Well, I'll tell you, their tax rate, not only is their debt per student extremely low relative to Del Mar, their tax rate is not quite half of what Del Mar's is.
Right.
All right, so they've got low debt and almost half the taxes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
Well,
they're efficiently run.
right.
And based on the people that you know that have attended there,
Yeah.
apparently they're good as well.
Oh, yeah. No,
I know they've always had a good reputation that I'm aware of.
Mhm.
But they're well run.
Oh, yeah. So, I don't know what's dragging us down at Del Mar, and we're trying to figure that out. I'm not gonna try to point the blame at any one person, but I'll just blurt it out. We've got a CFO with no accounting background or financial background whatsoever, then I get a little bit nervous with that, folks.
And I was reading some other colleges' financial statements, and it does give me comfort when both the CFO and the controller sign the financials, and they have comma CPA after the name.
Right.
Both of them. And I just have more comfort with that.
Right.
You don't have to have a CPA certificate to know what you're doing, but we don't know these people.
Right.
And that tells me they do know what they're doing.
Right. Well, it'd be just like me going to a physician, and I look up and I've got, here's a physician that's about ready to run a major surgical procedure on me, and I look up and I say, well, MED, or an EDD. you know, or a CPA. I
Whoa.
mean, you're gonna get a little bit nervous there, folks. So, you know, and it just baffles me that we have to, you know, endure this and then have I don't know how much it's gonna cost ultimately for this Attorney General's office opinion. It costs me at the state level because I'm paying the salaries of the attorneys and the assistant attorney generals and stuff of the state of Texas. And then I'm paying money to the attorneys for Del Mar College, Mr. Rivera and Ms. Cano and this, what was this group, Chastain up there at Graves Daughtry in Austin. And, you know, that's my tax money, folks. I work too hard to pay taxes to be putting up with this garbage.
And why did they need the opinion anyway? I mean, just turn over, unless there's something terribly embarrassing in those emails.
Well, that's probably the bottom line, but, you know, I would think any employee at Del Mar College that was wrapped up in that, and that what I consider to be, I'll blurt it out, a conspiracy to run you off, okay, and to discourage you. I mean, those people work for me too, you know. I mean, I'm working on my tax money, and they're working on my tax money. And I just don't think that needs to be confidential. We need to cough it up. Who signed off on that?
And that letter was signed by Tammy, but I don't think Tammy had the idea to send out a quote for $27 million.
No, I mean, she's just the in-between. And, you know, unfortunately, that's going to be a bit of tarnish on her and her reputation. I hate to see you do that to your fellow employees over there. Del Mar College and the administrators and attorneys doing that to a person, but, you know, she's gonna be the one that signed, she's the one that signed the letter, she's the one that's gonna have to take the brunt of the...
And that letter was on channel KRIS TV.
Right.
And it had her signature on it.
That's right.
That's the only thing the public knows at this point.
Well, that's all they need to know, isn't it?
And that's
No, actually, I'm just pulling your leg. We need to know who set Mrs. McDonald up for that hit, so to speak. And it makes it. I mean, it is a blight on her reputation, ladies and gentlemen. And you know, if I were that lady, I think I'd be so mad right now. I'd be jumping up and down, demanding on, you know, who put you up to that? Who wrote the letter? Okay. Did the attorneys at Del Mar College sell you down the river with that? Did the other employees? Did the vice president of business finance, CFO? Who set you up for that?
If I were to guess, Doctor, I'd say the attorneys weren't involved until after the fact.
After the fact, okay. Well,
I don't think they would have allowed that.
Well, you know, it's just it just breaks my heart to see people used as the fall people over there. The fall guy or the fall gal, and you know, what can I say, Mrs. McDonald?
But the bottom line is, I'm going to keep asking questions until I get the answers.
That's right.
The 27 million, I was stunned by it, but it didn't stop me.
No, I mean, things like that don't frighten me. You know, I quit being frightened when I was about 7, 8 years old. My dad said, "Quit being frightened. You know, go out there and do it." And that's my background, folks. And you know, I take a lot of bad press over there. I've got a lot of my fellow faculty members that say that I'm a wild man over there, and you know, I'm upsetting the apple cart and making them look bad. And all I'm trying to do is just ferret out the truth.
Yeah. Now, if the truth makes them look bad, that's not your fault.
No, I'm not taking that fault. That's for sure. But you know, you talk to enough people around to know that I've got a lot of Del Mar College employees that don't appreciate anything I've done.
You've got a lot of them that really appreciate what you've done as well.
Well,
I've talked to that group as well.
Okay. Well, I'll just leave it at that. That's what I'm here for. I don't want the appreciation. I just want to know that at the end of the day, I've done the right thing for the majority, which are students and taxpayers.
And we're going to continue to look. We've got that $2.838 million that I want the detail for.
Mm-hmm.
We've got the $42,000 for for the Navy that's included in that. I want to know why that's written off.
Sure.
We're not collecting it. If they don't collect the receivables from people that owe them money, that's not a problem for Del Mar because they're going to pay their bills anyway. Our tax rate's going to go up to subsidize these write-offs. And that appears to be what's going on, and that's probably why Del Mar has one of the highest tax rates in Texas and one of the highest debts per student in Texas. It's actually going to be the highest once these bonds are issued. And that's why, according to the research I did on the internet, it cost 30% more to put a student through Del Mar than the average in the U.S. So it doesn't affect when they don't collect that bill. If they didn't collect from the Navy, which it appeared they didn't, it's just like Texas A&M Kingsville. They didn't collect from them. It wasn't a problem. All their bills got paid. All Del Mar's bills got paid. And it was because they're able to get a subsidy for that from us, the taxpayers. So we're not going to quit. We're going to keep getting this information until we finally figure out what's going on. And right now, all I'm seeing is something's wrong.
Yes.
With all the financial ratios, something's wrong.
Well,
Do I know what's wrong? I don't.
No.
I just know there's something wrong.
Right. Well, but you are qualified educationally and so forth, professionally, to know when you finally figured out what is going wrong.
And I've got the sense to go get other college documents and compare them.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't take a whole lot of education to know, hey,
Well,
if Wharton's doing it this way, why is Del Mar so much different?
Yeah.
Wharton's been around a long time.
well, even the bigger ones, like Tarrant County and Dallas County Community College and Houston System and so forth. I mean, they're not anywhere near.
Their ratios are showing that they are efficiently run as a general rule. So, and you would expect that. But I think we should expect that as well.
Well, and I think we need to demand that as well, not just expect it, but we need to demand it. And, I'm not over here to embarrass anybody at Del Mar College. I just want to know what in the world is going on with my tax money. And most people by now know I'm president of the Corpus Christi Taxpayers Association, and I've got an awful lot of people who are asking the same questions. What in the world is going on at Del Mar College? Why are we in dire straits over here with tax money? And I've got students and neighbors that say, why is enrollment dropping? Okay, I mean, you've got one of the best faculties in the country as far as I'm concerned. I know all these people, and it's a very strong academic institution, so why would we be losing students like that?
And not only is it strong academically, and it is, I think there's no dispute about that. The price is very reasonable.
Yeah.
And if you compare it to the island, it's a fraction.
Right.
And so why would somebody go to the island rather than here for the first 2 years?
Well,
and that's apparently what's happening.
Yeah.
They're going somewhere else. And the population of Corpus is not shrinking, yet the student enrollment is declining.
Yeah.
So it doesn't make sense. And they're not all going to the Eagle Ford as high school dropouts to drive trucks.
No.
I mean, we've got less than 3,000 full-time students. Everybody didn't go to Eagle Ford.
No.
And with the price of oil right now, they're not going there tomorrow either.
No, I think we're in for a real bad time coming up. I think you emailed me the other day and said it sounds like 1986 again.
Yeah, it was less than $10 a barrel. I think it may have been $9 a barrel in '86. I remember it well. Jet planes were very inexpensive back then because everybody was turning them in.
Right. Well, it's the oil exploration and production, folks. I mean, it cycles. It
has always been a cycle.
Very first barrel that's been pumped out in Pennsylvania.
It's always been a cycle.
Yeah. And if you produce more and more and more to make the speculators and the people drilling for oil more money, then it's gonna bottom out. You know, we can't beat the Mid East for oil production. They don't care. They've already got millions of billions of our dollars sitting over there, and they couldn't care less if it goes to $9 a barrel again.
It will not affect their economy. It affects ours.
Mm-hmm. And that's going to have a direct impact on the enrollment at Del Mar College. We can't just say everything's wonderful. We need a new campus because of Eagle Ford for another $200 million or whatever that we're staring in the face in 2 years for that. But you know, and you can't defer maintenance over there at Del Mar. You can't, you know, fire a bunch of dedicated custodians over there and hire one of these custodial services that can't cut the mustard.
For $1 million a year?
Yeah, for $1 million a year. I mean, I can't think that we paid that much for custodial in the future or in the past. But those are numbers I'm going to try to ferret out too. You know, the worst thing that can happen to a lot of these governmental entities around here is me going on Christmas vacation and having enough time to sit down and think about things. That's your worst nightmare.
Well,
I hope I haven't been too salty.
No, the truth does not hurt.
Okay. Well, it hurts other people, but not necessarily us. And we're going to ferret out the truth, you know. And,
well, Doctor, I appreciate you spending some time with me today.
well, I appreciate you so much. I really do. I've learned an awful lot, folks. I'm not going to be a CPA caliber, but I guarantee you, when you can put a team together with expertise that the several of us have got, then that's an awesome thing for the taxpayers.
Yeah, and we've got people in the Taxpayers Association that complement what we do as well.
Right. You know, it's just not this as they call it, the BS.
Investigate.
BS investigations. That's Bennett and Sansing, by the way, folks. We're not being crude about this. So anyway, well, Ed, I appreciate you, and you know, anytime I can help you out, I hope I haven't hindered your show. But
no, you've been a help.
Okay.
This will continue. Thank you.
Currently, Del Mar has $9,890 of debt for each student. Now, that includes the full-time students, which number less than 3,000, the part-time students, which is around 6,000, and the dual credit students, about 1,350. So they have, each one of them represents $9,890 of debt. Del Mar has approximately 10,500 students. They've got about $100 million in debt currently. Now, the recent bond issue for $157 million was passed during the last election cycle. That will increase the debt, the total debt for Del Mar, to approximately $257 million. Now, some of that will be paid down in the interim, and all the new debt won't be issued at the same time. However, when that debt is fully issued, it will be in the area of $250 million. Now, if we only have 10,500 students, we're going to have over $24,000 of debt for each student. Now, what's that compare to? Let's look at Wharton. Wharton has debt per student $612. Now, that's currently. Del Mar has $9,890. Wharton's been around a long time. How much debt does Wharton have? $3,830,000. Del Mar has about $100 million. They will have about $250 million. So we can compare $24,000 per student debt for Del Mar to Wharton's $612. Why the difference? Well, that's a very good question. And in fact, let's look at some of these other schools. North Central Texas, $761 per student debt. El Paso, $1,923 per student debt. Why is it that Del Mar is so much higher? And based on the statistics that I've seen on the internet, Del Mar cost approximately 30% more to educate a student than the national average. Now, this is based on research on the internet, and I have tried and am currently still trying to get information from Del Mar through the Public Information Act laws. It's been very difficult. As most of you are aware, one of the requests that I asked for was some detailed general ledger accounts for a handful of general ledger accounts. The quote came back at $26.7 million and $105 million documents with over 100 man years to produce them. We did negotiate that with the college attorney, the outside counsel, and within 15 minutes we came down to it was less than 200 pages, and the cost was zero. So it appeared to be an intentional roadblock so that I would not get the memo that you saw opening the show. That memo indicates to me that the college tried, their accounting department tried in 2010 to convert some system, accounting system, accounts receivable system, some system that is a major component of their internal control system. And apparently, based on that memo, the conversion didn't go that well. In fact, that memo says the conversion failed. And in 2012, over a year later, the college, their accounting department, elected to post a forced journal entry to make that general ledger agree to those subledgers. The amount of that forced journal entry was approximately $185,000. The journal entry was the original one that Dr. Sansing and I found based on his initial Public Information Act request for the Del Mar bad debt. That was a 5-foot stack of paper. And in that 5-foot stack of paper, we found this 3-page memo that was attached to a journal entry that wrote off accounts to the likes of Texas A&M Kingsville for over $50,000. The Council of Government for close to $80,000. These bothered us. We've done additional research, or have attempted to acquire more information, and it's been a real struggle. They don't want to turn the information over. For some reason, Del Mar does not want to give me the information. Let's look at the tax rates. Now, in 2008, I think Del Mar was the 3rd highest tax rate of any community college taxing authority in Texas. In 2012, some have changed. There are some that are above us. But let's look at the rate. In 2012, Del Mar's taxing about 25.8 cents per thousand. How's that compared to, let's say, Wharton? Wharton's just about half that, 13.8 cents. Now, Wharton has lower debt per student. So they are taxing at a lower rate, and their debt per student's lower. That indicates to me, on the surface, that Wharton is a better run, more efficiently run college, economically, than Del Mar. We need to look at other financial ratios, which I have and which I continue to do, to determine why Del Mar is on a bell curve way removed from the mean, or the medium. Del Mar is on the far left-hand side of that bell curve. They're over on almost every number when compared to the average colleges in Texas, the community colleges. That doesn't tell us anything conclusively. However, it gives us a fine indication that there's something wrong, that maybe it's not very well run economically, efficiently. It's an inefficiently run college. And when you look at the fact that based on the internet research, it cost a third more to educate a student at Del Mar, something seems seriously wrong. All right, let's look at some other slides. Thank you so much for watching the show today. If you have questions, email me. Thanks. See you next week.